Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're joining us on Zoom, just look at the top of the bottom of your screen. Wherever your Zoom controls are, you should see a little button that says Q&A. Click on that, type in your question, hit submit, and I'll get to those at the end of the session. If you're joining us on YouTube, just feel free to use the live chat function wherever it happens to be on the device that you're using, and make sure that you just ask your question there, and I will get to those at the end of the session as well. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe and all those good things, because it really helps us out be able to make more content for you, more informative, hopefully, more informative information for you. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's National Diagnostic Technical Trainers. Been in the training department. I'm starting my 10th year in the training department now, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple of years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on. So I had about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So I worked in a dealership, and I guess over time became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up with the intermittent problems, the drivability problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher cars that would come into my bag. And before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So speaking of experience, tonight's topic is about experience-based information. Right. And as I have always said, or I don't know if I've always said this, but I've said it very often over many, many years, wrenches really don't fix cars. Information fixes cars, especially nowadays with these more complex vehicles that are out there. And sometimes you get thrown those weird oddball curveball type situations that you need to have more information than maybe you normally would be used to gathering. When asked about gathering information, many techs will agree that the most of their diagnostic time is spent looking it up, looking up information, trying to find information from multiple sources, be it OEM and experience-based information. And that, of course, is going to decrease your efficiency as a tech. If it takes me an hour to look up all the information, well, I've just burned through that standard hour diagnostic that most of us do. So in order to speed up the diagnostics, you need to be able to access the information quicker, easier, and have it essentially right at our fingertips. So the different types of information we have out there it falls into two buckets, right? So we have the OEM information, which is going to be straight from the manufacturer, TSBs, repair information, things like that. Then there's also real world information, which is going to be based on actual repairs out there in the real world. And that's going to be based on tech experience. Now, I'll have this conversation sometimes, right? So OEMs, oftentimes the information from the manufacturer is written by an engineer sitting in a cubicle somewhere. Here's how this vehicle is supposed to come apart. Here's how these different repairs need to be done. So there's a difference between that type of information than, hey, how do I actually fix this car? What are some things that we may have seen that the OEM might have overlooked? Or, hey, here's a really common issue, common thread with that. So based on actual repairs, based on that tech experience. And when it comes to real world information, where can we get this real world information that's there? Well, one good place is repair orders. Actual repairs that have been done in real shops, in the real world. What has fixed this problem in the past? The other way we can get that information is just from the tech's general knowledge. Working on cars over a period of time, you will pick up just your own quick fixes, or what's a quick thing that I can look at. It's probably 5 or 6 of them I could think of off the top of my head just on Subarus, because I worked for Subaru for 8 years, and it's just, you see the same things over and over and over again. You will eventually say, oh, well, it's got this problem, it's got to be this. And almost every time it would be. Like, for example, you get a early mid-2000s Subaru, late 90s Subaru comes in with a PL325 code for a knock sensor. It just needs a knock sensor. That's just all there is to it. They had pretty, not the best quality control, I guess, on the knock sensors. Knock sensor would always fix the problem. in that case. There's so many other situations where it's just that hands-on first person knowledge that you have is a good place to start. Also, think about other technicians. What have other technicians done in this same scenario? Now, maybe if it's if you're working in a shop, could be your buddy sitting right next to you and say, hey, have you seen this before? What have you done? Other times it could be, well, I'm working on this Ford here for an example. And maybe I call down to my buddy who works at the Ford dealership and say, hey, have you seen this before? And what is the problem? Otherwise, there are other multitude of resources that you can gather real world information from. And one of the biggest repositories of real world information really exists within the Snap-on ecosystem, I'll say. So, between the scan tools, ShopKey, SureTrack, all that information combines our vast amounts of data that we have. So here's an example case study where in this example, you might not, unless you've seen this vehicle before, you may not even think that this would a possibility for being a problem, right? So this is a 2006 Mini Cooper S. So it's a supercharged Cooper from back in the day. That's pretty much mostly all they had was that W11 engine they had back then. And the customer complains of lack of power and their engine lights. Okay, fair enough. So go in and scan it, and sure enough, there's a code in there for P1688. And the definition for that P1688 code is electronic throttle control motor level 2-3 mass airflow calculator. So if I'd never dealt with this before, and I was just looking at that as a definition, a code definition, what might be my first thoughts of what the problem could be? Could be something in the electronic throttle control motor, something in the mass airflow sensor, something in the air duct coming up from the air filter between the mass airflow sensor and the engine there, the intake. So I'm not entirely sure at this point what it is, but that would be maybe the first thought, just looking at the code. Here's the code based on my experience, my own experience. What might it be? Next thing we want to do is maybe check the OEM data. So we can check OEM data by looking at, say, the TSBs. So if we look at the TSBs, there are two different TSBs here, a DME fault P1688 and a W11 engine DME FC P1688 diagnostic. Let's see what the OEM has to say. And this is also another, I think, pretty good representation of the difference between what happens in the cubicles and what happens in the real world, right? So the first one's DME fault P1688. It's the R52 and the R53. Customer complains of lack of power in the engine is in fail-safe mode. The service engine soon light is illuminated and fault code P1688 is stored in the DME. Go down a little bit further so I can see the rest of this. So this fault can be caused by one of the following. Possible air leak in the induction system. All right, so that was kind of one of the thoughts I would have. Map sensors are indicating implausible values. Okay, kind of map mass airflow type situation. Or failure of a supercharger bypass valve sticking. So procedures to check the complete air intake system, including throttle body, supercharger, intercooler, and inlet manifold for air leaks. If no problem is found, verify both the manifold pressure sensors show plausible values. If values are not plausible, refer to the map sensor test module. If values are plausible, replace the supercharger bypass valve. There's your part number, and then reprogram the engine. So according to them, those are the only three things that could be. And then after this, we do a special test drive. It tells you how to drive it and beat the bag off it, basically, is what we're going to do. Please adhere to all traffic regulations while doing that. But according to them, so it's either a leak or a problem in the map sensor, or it's a problem in the supercharger bypass valve. Okay, there's one. Going to this other one. All right, so there's all my reference numbers, and it says service engine soon lights, MIL, and P1688 stored in the DME. Possible failure of the supercharger bypass valve once again. When performing a DIS GT1 test module, so on the factory tools on BMW Mini, they'll do test plans pretty often. So when following this test plan, though, in most cases, the test plan incorrectly directs the technician into replacement of the DME control module. So that's digital motor electronics. So that's the PCM. So the test plan tells them to replace the PCM. When diagnosing Cooper S with DME fault peak 1688, expect the proper operation of the bypass valve in the air intake system. Using a handheld vacuum pump, activate the bypass valve and observe its operation. If the valve is sticking in any position, replace it with a new part, and there's the same part number we had before on that previous one. So far, in summary, here's what they have told us to do. If we follow the test plan, along with what the factory says to do, we replace the DME, which looks like this, and the list price is about $1,300, almost $1,400. Or we also noticed inside those two TSVs that this valve, this bypass valve right here, we tested with the vacuum, etc. This bypass valve could be sticking. Maybe they had some problems with it, maybe they didn't, but that's $116 to try that out if we need to fix that. All right. So that's what the OEM tells me. If I follow the plan from the OEM, if I follow the TSBs from the OEM, no matter how I approach it from the OEM, this is what I'm going to end up doing, right? Between those two, unless my map sensor. Let's look at what experience-based information tells us on the same vehicle, same code, same problem. So if I look over here, this is another one of our experience-based information sources right here. And this is from Snap-on, of course, exclusive to Snap-on. This is our top repairs graph. According to this, if I zoom in there, the number one repair for this problem is replace the harmonic balancer. And you may be thinking, what in the world are you talking about? Why would a harmonic balancer cause this problem? And we'll get to that in a second. Also, replace crankshaft bolt is number 2. That's probably in conjunction with that. Drive belt tensioner, once again, probably in place of that. There's 11 of these here that said replace supercharger. So maybe they found a fault in the supercharger. Maybe might not necessarily be correct. Might be correct. You do have to use a little bit of this in order to go through this situation. Also replace fuel filters. Now, I'm not going to tell you that number one thing is going to be the number one fix, but that is looking pretty darn likely. And that's going to be the first place I'm going to look. I go to that graph and it tells me whatever the first most common fix for this is. Boom, right there. That's the one I'm going to look at, right? 190 times based on our data. And if we go down to the bottom of my Intelligent Diagnostics page, it's going to tell me customer states engine lights on, vehicle lacks power. Confirm the customer's complaint, found the vehicle lacked power and acceleration, connected to scan tool, found P1688. At idle, back probe the mass airflow sensor, monitor the sensor signal on a lab scope. The mass airflow sensor signal observed on the scope was within specifications. Performed a second road test of the vehicle. At that time, heard a slight metallic noise from the front of the vehicle. Smelled a burning rubber odor. Hoisted the vehicle, inspected the front of the vehicle, and noticed the crankshaft pulley had separated from the harmonic balancer. So on those, I'm pretty sure I got a picture of this a little bit later in a couple slides. But a harmonic balancer on a vehicle, right? You're going to have the outer pulley. You're going to have the crank pulley in the middle, and then in between to dampen any vibrations, you're going to have this rubber. And over time, as it heats up, cools off, where it'll break inside and the rubber, and the outside will not be turning the same as the inside, which according to the computer doesn't know any better. So the computer just thinks, hey, there's an airflow mismatch based on what the RPMs I need. What gets driven off the crankshaft is going to be the supercharger. So the supercharger is not turning at the proper speed. The engine's still turning, so it's still got that air pump thing going on, but the supercharger is not spinning because it's slipping based on that broken harmonic balancer. So in that case, replacing the harmonic balancer fixes it. Now, if you've ever looked at one of those cars, there's not that much room. You got maybe quarter an inch, half an inch at most. So even if it did catastrophically fail, like maybe you've ever seen it fail on a different type of car. On a different type of car, it may have a place to go. So if it's front of the engine, it might just go right through the radiator. Be pretty more obvious. But on this Mini, it's transverse mount. That little thing is off to the side, right next to the frame rail. There's not really anywhere for it to go. So you're just going to hear a rattling noise, kind of a metallic noise, just like this says here. And then you'll notice that it's there. So you can use your eyes and your ears and so on to see that. So that's the number one real fix. And by the way, that says it's been confirmed 50 times to fix this problem on an 06 Mini. If I go down here, there's some additional real fixes that'll be available there. So between the harmonic balancer and then replace the map sensor one time showed up. And then if we look at the that same thing, that's going to be very similar, except in this case, we're going to be actually checking the mass airflow map sensor and replace that. Okay, and then we also have, if you have integrated shop key information, there's some more information there. So if I just go into the factory repair information, it doesn't give you a whole lot from the factory, because like I said, it's a DME test plan, so it's going to actually go through on the scan tool, so we don't have really a flow chart for this. All right, but it does still give us our real world information there: real fixes, top repairs, causes, and fixes. So that would lead me down that same path to the pulley, right? And I don't have a picture of that. Apologize. Gonna have to put that in for the next class. But let's talk about this SureTrack information that we've been discussing. Real world information based on 2.25 billion repair orders. Now, 2.25 billion, obviously that's a quite large number, but problem with the human brain most times is that it can't, when we get to the billions, it's really hard to comprehend what a billion is based on to a million, right? There's a huge difference between those two. So, a billion is obviously 1,000 million. But let's visualize this. So if I took 2.25 billion repair orders, and let's just assume that they're really efficient in their writing, and it's one page per repair order if I were to print them all out. I'd run out of ink, I probably wouldn't have enough paper. But anyways, if I did that, and I laid that paper end to end, it's going to give me 390,625 miles of paper. Okay. The moon is 238,900 miles away. The Earth's circumference is 24,901 miles. The moon's circumference is 6,786 miles. So if you wanted to visualize this, if I laid that paper end to end, it would go around the Earth 5 times at the equator, and then I could get to the moon, and then still go around the moon 4 times plus. It's like 4.1 times, right? So I can go around the Earth 5 times to the equator, to the moon, around the moon 4 times, and still have a little bit of paper left over. That is a lot of information. That is a lot of repair orders, and that is available at your fingertips just by using that SureTrack information. And it's getting more and more every day, all the time. More and more information available. So also, you may not know, because I know this is the first time I've ever talked about it on a stream anyway. If you own a let's back up. If you own a Snap-on scan tool, doesn't matter what kind of Snap-on scan tool it is, as long as it can be updated. So that leaves us quite a few different scan tools. As long as it can get an update into it, once you get your software updated, you will receive a code for 6 months of access to this SureTrack information. Now, how would I go about processing this, logging this in? So, and this is only in the States. I'm not sure if it works over in the UK. I'd imagine maybe not, just because of the Haynes Pro situation over there, but I know it definitely works in the States. So if you're in the US, you update your scan tool. When you do so, you will receive a code either through email, or you receive it from your franchisee if you have your franchisee update your tool. What you need to do is you need to go to shopkeypro.com. And if you log in, or if you go in for the first time, and it says, you've arrived at this because your SureTrack account is either expired or not associated. So you do need to create a profile. But once you do that, you can come in here and it's going to give you information. So if you have, let me back up one. So if you have ProDemand or ShopKey Pro already included, and then you might just need to have a couple steps that you need to complete in here if you ever see this page. Otherwise, go down a little bit lower. So Veris, Zeus, scan tools. Actually, it's really any scan tool that we have now. Has to be on the current version of software. So you can go in there, and it's going to be access to this SureTrack information: Zeus, Veris Edge, Veris Pro, Vertic, Modus Edge, Modus Ultra, Solus Edge. Solus Ultra can't be updated anymore, and actually Modus Ultra can't be updated anymore. So that page needs to be updated. But any of the Edge products, Vertic can't be updated either. Veris Pro can't. Well, this does need to be updated. But any of our current tools that allow an update to be installed. So as long as you have that, you go down here and you're going to log in to your information down here. And then you will plug it in under here where it says SureTrack Community Activation. There's an authorization key. So that's where your name, address, phone number shows up in your Snap-on profile. Plug in the key. You can't use this one anyways. That's why I didn't blur it out. It's a one-time use key. And then you save it. It gives you 6 months. So in this case, it was like February 1st when I plugged that in there. So you'll see mine expires towards the end of the year. I don't really use it that often because I already have ShopKey anyway. But once you do that, you'll log in and you'll see it looks very much like ShopKey, except that we have home, we have OneSearch Limited, and then we have SureTrack Community. So I wanted to grab some screenshots. So I plugged in here, just loaded up my vehicle. And you'll see you do get a decent amount of information with this. And this is, like I said, with a software update, you would get access to this information for 6 months. So you do get a list of TSBs. You do get a list of guided component tests. And then you also get your commonly replaced components, codes, symptoms, and lookups for that vehicle. And you see in this case, it says based on analysis of 123,619 repairs. So that is for a 2011 Subaru Forester non-turbo, because that's how granular we get. So that's 123,619 repair orders out of that 2.25 billion. And you see when I plug in anything, so I just picked the first code there, P0171 lean code, you get related TSBs, real fixes, stop repairs, causes and fixes, guided component testing, component connectors, component locators, component operation, and tips available. So you don't get OEM repair procedures, you don't get the labor guide, you don't get the wiring diagrams, you don't get any of the OEM content. You do get the TSBs, but you don't get any of the other OEM content that would be there in ShopKey normal. But if we look in here, there's TSBs, a couple TSBs there, a bunch of real fixes. Then you get your commonly replaced parts graph, which you could also have on your scan tool. We also have these causes and fixes, which is kind of cool. I'll actually walk you through this here in a minute live so you can see what it does with code combinations, different combinations of things. Also, guided component tests are in there. So I didn't realize this was in there as well, but it is in there. All the guided component tests are available. No matter what tool you have, it's still in there. Of course, it's not going to set up everything for you, but the connector views are in there, that sort of thing. It's going to give you the wire colors and stuff like that. Best test locations, things of that nature. Everything but the actual meter itself in there. We got some tips like on a drive cycle, things of that nature. And then, like I said, from this front page, you can actually get to the full list of TSBs right there. And then the full list of guided component tests are available from there as well. So it is a lot of information available, and that's with a software update on your tool. So people say, well, you always talk about the Zeus, you always talk about the Triton, you always talk about all these different tools. Well, what about us who have, Soluses and things like that? Well, that's perfect. This is perfect for you because that is available on the tool. So in this case, I actually pulled up Veris Edge. So that is a non-intelligent diagnostic tool. And that has the capabilities of, well, let's at least go on the scanner first and see what we can do there. So on the scanner, I'm just going to pull up my demo car like I usually do. On the demo vehicle, we can just run it for codes. And then what we're going to see, once it goes through this, is we have our code here, and you'll see I have my commonly replaced parts graph on the top. So this is going to be very similar to what we would see in Intelligent Diagnostics. Actually, it's the same information from Intelligent Diagnostics with that. So that's actually a lower repair incidence than we would normally have. And you can actually, on this tool, you can actually turn them on and off too, which is kind of, if you have a Solus or a Motus or an Apollo or Triton or any of those, you can't turn them off, but in this case, you can. You can go in there. So if you got a lot of spaghetti here, you can just go in and click on it, turn it off, turn it on. Also down here, you see P0300 and it says fix it. So that's going to bring me to my number one real fix. So in case 289 times that really fixed it, complaint cost correction. Related tips, other real fixes that are in there. And then if you have ShopKey or Mitchell, you can click on repair information and it'll actually log you into the repair information as well. This is on a Veris Edge. So it does the same interface as we would normally have on the zoos. You just don't get the full Intelligent Diagnostics experience. So it still does a search for P0300, and I can go in there, and this is with ShopKey now, remember. So on ShopKey, you see I get TSBs, real fixes, top repairs, cause and fixes, specs, OEM testing. There's like 15 different places I can go. Now let's take this. I'm going to load that same vehicle in there. I'm going to log out, and I'm going to do the same search. So actually, let me clear this search out of here real quick. And then we can see all the information that's available there. So we can see all of these are lit up. I can go in here, get my ADOS information, get my fluid capacities, things like that. They're all available for me because this is ShopKey. Let me log out. And then I'm going to log back in again. And I'm going to log in with my non-ShopKey account. So I got to load my vehicle because I signed out, right? So Tahoe, LTZ, gas, 4-wheel drive, use this vehicle. All right, so now you see most of these are grayed out. So I can't access those with just the SureTrack access. But you can see TSBs, component test list is available there. All my common specs, commonly replaced components, DTC symptoms, and lookups, they're still available. Then if I wanted to go into the P0300 code here, and then I want to go over here. Remember, before I had 15 different cards I could do. Now I have 9. Right, so it takes out 6 of those cards because that would be for a ShopKey information, OEM information, wiring diagrams, specifications, R&R procedures, labor times, that sort of thing. That's ShopKey Mitchell. If you have access to SureTrack, though, you do have access to all of this information filtered down once again by that P0300 code. So I think that's pretty useful there for you. So let's see. So we can go things like, guided component testing is still in there. That tells you how it works. It gives you your component views, all the stuff you would normally expect to see on the tool itself. Now, in this case, we got a Varus. So if I wanted to go look up the cam sensor, I still could do that. I can go in here and I can pull cam sensor out of here. And it's going to give me the same information until I get down to the actual testing, where it's going to set up the meter for me. It's going to set up my voltage, set up my time, all that. So until I get to that point, I still have access to that information and still have access to all this experience-based information, all the information that the 2.25 billion repair orders get us. We can go into top repairs there and we can see the graph comes up. Once again, I can turn those on, turn those off, just like I could on the scan tool. You can go in there and see that. Causes and fixes, I said I was going to go through as well. So causes and fixes, that takes the graph information and it filters it down a little bit more for us. So the P0300, yep, could be any of those things. If I have these 2 codes, though, in combination, it filters it down to these 5 things. If I have these 3 codes in combination, well, it's probably the fuel injector. You see how it tells me 21 times the fuel injector fixed the problem when I had this, this, and this. So the more information I can throw at it, the more likely that solution is going to be the solution. Hence the having that experience-based information in tandem with our OE information if we have that as well. So hopefully you got a few tips and tricks out of that, because this is something I haven't really talked about in depth too much in these classes. So, and I'm venturing to guess that many of you were not aware that you would have this capability, even with, say, a Solus or a Modus or something of that nature. As long as you can update the tool, you still get access to some of the information that is available. Some of it's available on the tool, some of it is also available on the web. So with that, that is my time for this evening. And let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. So this was an all-new class. It's the first time I've ever done this class. I'm going to do it again tonight, but it's the first time we did this class. So as we do here, we do 5 new classes, and then we repeat those 5 classes again. So you get multiple times, multiple chances to come view the classes live, ask your questions, things of that nature. So next week, going to be another all new class. That'll be number 2 in this 5-week batch. So it's going to be called After the Repair, Coding Replacement Parts. So a lot of things need to be reset, relearned, coded to the vehicle when I replace things like injectors, batteries, headlights, things of that nature. So we're going to talk about how are we going to do this? When do we know that we need to do this? And walk through some information, some scan tool functions, things of that nature. So same time and same place as always, 6 and 9 Eastern. Go to snapon.com/OT to register if you want to join on Zoom. Otherwise, you can join at the 6 p.m. Eastern class live on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure to give me a like, a little thumbs up, a little, make sure you subscribe as well. You know, only about 13% of the people who watch our videos are subscribed. We could have some more people subscribe. It'd really help us out, help me out a lot. And then make sure you ring that notification bell as well, just so you know the next time we go live, the next time we post any new content, because we're doing new stuff all the time. So make sure you check that out. This 9 p.m. Eastern also goes to my Facebook. Any of our previous topics in this series, once again, all free and readily available on YouTube. We have 57 episodes. This is 58 that we're doing right now. So plenty of information out there for you. ADAS, guided component testing, data bus testing, VVT operation, hybrid vehicles. The list goes on and on. There's 58, as I said, now different topics available. So go check those out. youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics, all one word. Get to some questions. I see we got some stuff coming through, but before I do, I also want to make sure I mention my buddy Keith. Keith also does free training. But Keith's free training is on Scan Tools. So he does Wednesday and Thursday nights. So this is a little bit different than what you might be used to if you've previously seen any of our classes starting up until this year. We used to have Al McCaskey do this. He's since retired. So Keith Ray took over in his position. Keith's been with the company just as long, if not longer, than Al was. So he is a wealth of Snap-on Diagnostics information. He's been in diagnostics the entire time as well. So Wednesday is on Zeus, and then Thursday is a combo Apollo Triton class, since the first hour of that class is the same anyways, because the scanner works the same. So it's going to walk through tool setup, setting up your free Snap-on Cloud account. Going to mention about security link setup as well. And then he walks you through a code to completion real world scenario on Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics. Then that's the first hour. Then he takes about a 5-minute break. And then he walks through guided component tests, lab scope, things of that nature that are in the Zeus and in the Triton as well. So snapon.com/OT to sign up for that as well. Keith only goes to Zoom, so it's kind of supposed to be more of a like almost one-on-one, or one on multiple, good sort of thing. So you can follow along with your scan tool as Keith's doing stuff on the screen as well. So snapon.com/OT to register for that. All right, let's get to questions. I saw a couple on Zoom here. We'll go here first. Let's see. So let's see. Eric says, when is the Zeus Plus getting an update? My rep told me plan on updating the tool's hardware again along with features. Well, the Zeus Plus just came out, so we're not really updating the hardware on that until whatever the next thing after the Zeus is, and that's going to be a while before that happens. So you're not going to see any hardware changes, but you will see some software changes every time we update the software. So that's going to be 2 weeks now. In 2 weeks, so first full week of April is when the next software update comes out. So if you're looking for that, that'll be coming out, as I said, first week of April. That'll be available. You can update over the air on most of our tools now as well. As long as you have a current software subscription or a data plan available on it, you can update it over the air. Otherwise, you can also talk to your franchisee or representative in order to get an update on that. And then Eric says, does the code for shop key access work with the D10? So that's not full shop key, so that's a SureTrack access, and it should work. It should work. You should get a code when you do an update on your tool. If you're on subscription, you should get an email when you do an update, I believe is supposed to be how it's going to work. If not, if neither of those happen, then you can always just call in tech support and they can give you a code as well. They'll just make sure that you just did an update, and then they'll be able to give you a code as well. I think we want to use that as our last resort, though, because it should be able to be automated, and we can save the phone calls for people who need tech support, not just the codes. All right, so let's go to YouTube. So Rock and Punk Dad, hello. It should be good. Hopefully, it was good for you. I know that you plugged that in right before we started there, so hopefully you got some tips and tricks with that. Abel, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Nick from England, always glad to see you there. Let's see. All right, so Nick has a question, and it's actually a very timely question. So, on my scanner, can I reset the AdBlue system malfunction service required with my scanner on a Ford Transit 2018? So Ford, I know you're in the UK, so that is one of those things that's behind security. So right now, today, you're not able to do it. Once you put in the next update, you should have that capability. So I know you guys were like 6 months behind where we were at, so you should have that capability added to the tool in the next update when it comes out in the first week of April-ish or so. So Nick, definitely look out for that. Matt says, thanks, Jason, for keeping these classes free. No problem. Glad I can keep them free, and glad the powers that be at Snap-on allow me to keep them free too. So that's good. When the next round of updates come out, so like I said, that's first full week of April, so that'll be very, very soon. It's like right around the corner. Rock and Punk Dad also says Al's a great guy. Yes, he is, and he is enjoying his I wanted to say vacation, enjoying his retirement very much so. He bought a nice big van rig, overland rig, I guess you call him, and he's having a grand old time traveling around. So that's a wonderful thing. Anthony, thanks for checking in. Ram 50 V8, thanks for showing up and saying that you're here as well. Good to see you all in class. We got another thing on Zoom. So Ivan asked, do I prefer ShopKey or ProDemand? There's absolutely zero difference between ShopKey and ProDemand except for the little logo on the top left-hand corner of the screen. That's really the only difference because it's the exact same information. So Snap-on as a corporation owns Mitchell. So we have that, and then it's just ShopKey's just our own brand. So ShopKey gets sold off the Snap-on truck, and then Mitchell gets sold by Mitchell Rep. So there's your other real difference, but the data, the information, identical in every single way. Because, like I said, it's the same product. It's just got a different name on it, and it just depends on who gets the money. Your dealer gets the money if it's ShopKey. Otherwise, it's the Mitchell Rep gets the money. Just kind of how it works out. All right, with that, looks like we are clear. So I'd like to take this moment to thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day, spend a little bit of time with me. Hopefully we learned about the value of that information, the value of that experience-based information, and how that can help you out, and how you may have access to it and you may not even have known. Got another question here on Zoom. Let's see. So Eric says, Sam, plan on making a Zeus Plus diagnostic workstation. Any plans for a docking station? Yes, they're already available. So any of the new workstations will be coming with Zeus Plus in them. They don't have a physical docking station. They have a metal stand that it sits in. It's got a USB little dock dongle thing. Comes with a couple of USB ports, HDMI out, all that. So they can actually be retrofit to an older workstation, or just a whole new workstation that's available. They are when they're shipping with Zeus Plus, because we're not shipping Zeus anymore. So they are definitely out there. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend a little bit of time with me. Hopefully we'll see you next week for coding parts. We're going to talk about coding parts. With that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good night. Take care.